morning. So in the last video we discussed about caste system, and according to the caste system how ancient society was divided, right? So now today we are going to finish our chapter number 3, that is kinship, caste and class, right? So let's go ahead and finish the chapter. Point number 6 of chapter number 3, handling the text, historian and the Mahabharata. Handling the text here refers to analyze the text, study the text, research the text of Mahabharata, and then try to find about the text itself, Mahabharata, right? So now, when the historian, they try to handle the text, they need to keep in their mind certain kind of elements or features that they need to study about. First, about the language, author, right, in which date it was composed. So different kind of criteria or element they need to take care about. So first, historian, when they analyze the text, what they need to do, they examine the language, in which language Mahabharata was wrote. Mahabharata was written in Sanskrit, right? Not only Sanskrit, later on it wrote in different kind of language. We have Pali, Prakrit, Tamil, right? And these Pali and Prakrit are a language of common people, right? The Sanskrit, right? The Sanskrit language is language of these high class people, the Kshatriyas and Brahmins. They use this kind of language, Sanskrit, right? And the Pali and Prakrit, these are the language which is used by the common people. So Mahabharata was also wrote in Sanskrit, the Pali and Prakrit. Not only that, Mahabharata was also wrote in Tamil, right? Tamilicum, ancient Tamil language. Understood? Not only that, they also need to study about the kind of text it was. Mahabharata, the story, it's all about the story, or it is a kind of mantra that they used to chant or recite by the Brahmanas. So they need to look after what kind of text it was. Not only that, they also try to find about the author of Mahabharata. Who is the author of Mahabharata? Is there one author? Is there many authors? They need to find about all those things when they're handling the text. Understood? And second thing they need to look after. The actual date or place where it was composed. So they also need to look after this. They also need to find out what the possible date when it was wrote, or place where they have composed, place where it was composed. So these are the certain kind of elements or certain kind of these features that they need to keep in the mind of the historian when they analyze or when they're handling the text Mahabharata. Understood? So within this point number 6 of chapter number 3, we have 3 subtopics that we're going to discuss about. Now subtopic. The first 6.1, language and the content. As I told you, right, Mahabharata was in which language Mahabharata was wrote. Not only that, content of Mahabharata, synopsis, a different kind of syllabus of Mahabharata. How many syllabus were there? We need to learn in this topic. Understood? And the 6.2, author and date. Who wrote the Mahabharata? Not only in which date Mahabharata was composed, right? We need to study about it. And third, the search for the convergence. Now here, see, the word convergence means usually confuse, meet or combine, right? Now in here, convergence means historian, they search about the commonness in the text, various texts of Mahabharata. Then they try to find out about the history. In this, we are going to discuss about the excavation of Hastinapur by the Bibilal, right? One of the most important archaeologists of ancient India about the Mahabharata. So in this topic, we are going to discuss about it. The first, language and content. Now here, in which language Mahabharata was wrote? As we consider Mahabharata was wrote in Sanskrit, right? The first Mahabharata was wrote in Sanskrit. Later on, it was wrote in many other languages. We have this Pali language, in Prakrit language, then in Tamil language, right? Mahabharata was wrote in different language, not only in Sanskrit. Understood? Now about the content, about the synopsis, right? Historian divided synopsis into 2 parts. Now that is the Sanskrit script, right? Sanskrit script. Historian divided content of Mahabharata into 2 parts or 2 broad parts. That is a narrative and didactic. Right now, first, what is narrative? Narrate means telling story, right? And in this section, in this content section, that contain story, it's purely based on story about the Mahabharata. In this we have this Kurukshetra war, game of dice, then we have the Draupadi marriage, right? And this Draupadi marriage is also an Eklavya, story of Eklavya, Bhim and Hidamba marriage, were all in this narrative section, right? This all purely based on story. That is one point. One chapter, this content of Mahabharata. And second chapter or second this content of Mahabharata is didactic. Didactic usually means it's a purpose for this instruction, right? For the instruction. See, contain prescriptions about social norms. In the didactic, it contains about the social prescriptions, social norms, moral value, ethical value. All this kind of part is wrote in the didactic part. One of the most important didactic this part was this Bhagavad Gita. You know about it, right? The Krishna he gave the advice to Arjun in the battlefield, right, during the Kurukshetra war. So Bhagavad Gita is one of the most important sacred texts. Even in India, we consider those who follow the Krishna, they consider Bhagavad Gita. Not only that, most of the Indian people consider Bhagavad Gita as an important text, and that is Bhagavad Gita. It is part of the Mahabharata in a didactic section or instruction. Understood? Now, things here you need to understand is both the narrative and didactic are not that much strictly divided or watertight. So, there's some kind of this exchange with there. Sometimes what happened in the didactic section, in the narrative section, right? Sometimes what happened, sometimes story also contain about the social norms. Just like we have this Eklavya, in the Eklavya story, it's not only based on story. At the end of the story, it gives us something about the moral value, right? So in a didactic, it's all actually the didactic is all about the norms and prescription. But sometimes in the narrative section, we also they also have many kinds of stories over there. So that means the division between these two content are not that much strict or watertight. Understood? The division is by not means of watertight. That means a division exchange with there sometimes in the stories. Understood? Now the narrative part is consider more older, earliest part, and didactic. These sections were added later on around 2nd century BC. Understood? This didactic part were probably added later. So that is all about the language and content. So in exam, if there was some question about this language, Mahabharata was written first in Sanskrit, then it's wrote in many other languages, Pali, Prakrit, and Tamil language, right? And content, it have two content, right? Narrative and didactic. Narrative mostly about the narration, stories, purely story basis. And didactic mention about the purpose of instruction, mention about social norms, social value, moral value, ethical value. Understood? Now, 6.2 that we are going to discuss about is author and date. Who was the author of Mahabharata? And in which date Mahabharata was composed? So that's question about. The first question here is, who wrote the text Mahabharata? Now see, there are many debate about the author of Mahabharata. In your textbook, the only mention about the Ved Vyas is the author of this Mahabharata. But see, the original story of Mahabharata was composed or wrote by a chariot bard called Sutta. Right? Now, original story was composed by charioteer. Chariot means this four-wheeler, this horse-drawn cart, right, used in the battle. Right? Charioteer means those who drive this cart. It's called charioteer. In Mahabharata, Krishna used to be the charioteer of Arjun, right? You know about it. So the chariot bard, they are sinkers. What they did, they used to help or accompany king in the battlefield, and they composed a poem, whatever they saw in the battle, the victorious of battle, this good deed of king, So they sing that kind of song, or they composed a poem about whatever they saw in the battle, right? See, who helped the charioteer bard, right? Who helped a king in the battlefield and composed poem about victorious and achievement of the king. So what they did, their poem, whatever they composed, is circulate in an orderly way, not in a written form. Circulate in an orderly way from the generation to generation. Understood? Only in an orderly way it circulated from generation to generation. Understood? Now what happened? Then around 5th century BC, right, the Brahmin, they start writing the Mahabharata. Understood? They compose in the orderly way, right? And then in 5th century BC, Brahmin took over the story and began to write. Then they start writing the Mahabharata, right? And during the 5th century BC, if you remember, in this during that time in India, the Mahajanapratas were very popular. Among the 16 Mahajanapratas, right? The Kuru and Panchala, both of these Janpads were included in the central story of Mahabharata, right? During that time, the Kuru and this Panchala are very popular and prosperous kingdom at the time. So the story of Mahabharata was revolved around these two Janpads, right? Mahajanapat, Kuru and Panchala. Understood? Now, then what happened? In around 2nd century BC, right, the Vishnu became very important in Indian subcontinent, right? Vishnu, the deity Vishnu, right, very popular. Vishnu became very popular at the time. So at the time, we know about the Krishna, right? Krishna is we consider Krishna as a reincarnation or avatar of Vishnu, the 8th avatar of Vishnu. So through that way, the didactic part, which was composed, which was added later on to the Mahabharata. See, between 200 BC and 400 CE, right? Large didactic section, as I told you before. Didactic section means instructions, right? Were added and resembling the Manusmriti. Now here, between 200 BC here refers to, at the time, Vishnu became very important, at the time, and then as we consider Krishna as a reincarnation of Vishnu. So in this, the Bhagavad Gita is all about that, right? And a part of the Mahabharata, which was added to the Mahabharata. And that kind of didactic is just like Manusmriti, because Manusmriti is ancient text which mention about the different kinds of rules and regulations, right? Just like that, didactic is also like Manusmriti, because that also describe about social norms, social value. So resemble here means seem like just like seem. Understood? So that's why first Mahabharata, in the narrative section, the verses contain almost like 10,000s. Later on, when the didactic sections were added to the Mahabharata around 2nd century BC, then the verses grew up to 1 lakh verses. Just like here, see, then 10,000 verses means first in narrative section we have 10,000 verse. Verse means narrative in a stanza in a poetic way, right? In Mahabharata. Later on, what happened when the didactic sections were added, right? Then the verses grew to 1 lakh verses. So that's why Mahabharata is considered one of the most important or very rich kind of text we consider in the subcontinent, and not only in the subcontinent, in the world, right? So that is all because of that. Now all this work or compilation or composition attribute goes to Vedvyas, or you can say all this work or the authorship goes to sage Vedvyas. In exam, if there was question about who wrote the text Mahabharata, 1 marks question, then your answer would be sage Vedvyas or sage Vyas. And actually there was a many story about who is the author of it. There was story just like that, the story of Mahabharata which was narrated by the sage Vyas to Lord Ganesh, and then Lord Ganesh wrote it down, right? There was also a story about that, right? But in your textbook, it's all about the Vedvyas. So in your exam, if there was question about it, then you need to write about the author of the Mahabharata is sage Vyas or Vedvyas. So that is all about author and date. Understood? Now the next, we have 6.3, right? The search for convergence. Now as I told you before, convergence refers to combine, confluence, meeting, right? Now opposite of convergence is divergence. We know about it, right? Now here the search for convergence means search for the commonness in the various texts of Mahabharata. If you look into the many epics of many the itihas of ancient India stories, in the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana. It mentioned about different kind of palace, different kind of forest, different kind of kingdom, different kind of kings were there, right? Different names were given, right? Mahabharata, like many other epics like Ramayana, contain vivid description about the battle, right? Forests, palaces, and settlements, right? Just like that, in what happened in 1951 to 1952, the archaeologist called B.B. Lal, who excavated, the Hastinapur present day in Meerut, right? Excavated Hastinapur in present day Meerut, UP. See, B.B. Lal, he very, this noted archaeologist, expert about the Mahabharata. Now, what he did, he excavated the Hastinapur present day, about it in Meerut, UP. Now, thing here you need to know is Hastinapur. Is that the Hastinapur, the place that was mentioned in Mahabharata text, the capital of Kuru kingdom, right, Hastinapur, or it's just similarity in the name, could be the coincidence. Maybe it's coincidence, similarity in the name, right? But whatever it is, but thing here is what happened. The location of Hastinapur in UP, this upper portion of Ganga Dwap area, where in the history mentioned like the Kuru, this Hastinapur kingdom was there, situated there. So it suggests that that is the Hastinapur where the Kuru, it was the Hastinapur that the Kuru kingdoms, right? So archaeology mentions like that. It must be this Hastinapur which was mentioned in this Indra kingdom and mentioned in this Mahabharata text. Understood? So not only that, what he did, he excavated, B.B. Lal with the help of his team, what he did, he excavated Hastinapur in limited area, because extensive kind of excavation, they were not able to do it because people living in this area at the time. But what they did, B.B. Lal did this little, this limited excavation in place. In this, where what he found 5 occupation level. He found 5 occupation level, or 5 this, which second and third are of our own interest. That means what he did a stratigraphy excavation, right? Stratigraphy excavation, study about the soil, right? Stratigraphy excavation, and what he found 5 occupation level, right? 5 occupation level. Out of this 5 occupation level, according to date, more deeper means more older, about, right? Out of these 5, only second and third are interests of us, right? Something to interest of us, interest of B.B. Lal, right? About the Mahabharata, right? Is this the actual the Hastinapur that was mentioned in Mahabharata, or is this just a coincidence in the similarity of the name? We just need to look after it. Now, first, here, now the second layer, right? Second layer, the time frame that B.B. Lal gives over here is 12th to 7th century. 12th to 7th century, right? Between this BC, what he found when he excavated this area, what he found is during that area, during that period between this 12th to 7th century, there were no any proper house. He also encountered a house made up of this mud brick, right? And he also found a reed wall, reed wall plastered over a mud. Reed means a kind of plant on which or kind of grass on which they plaster the mud and then make a wall of the house. So he found that kind of house in between this second occupation level, between this 12th to 7th century. Understood? Now in the third occupation level, between this 6th to 3rd century, 6th to 3rd century BC, what he found a proper house made up of mud brick, made up of this burnt brick, made up of mud brick or made up of burnt brick, means proper house. On that he also found a drainage, and also he found a terracotta wall, solid wall. So that kind of things he found. So through that way he mentioned, that must be this Hastinapur that mentioned in Mahabharata. Understood? So that is all about this, what excavation did by the B.B. Lal during that time, 1951 to 1952. Understood? Now, apart from that, one of the most challenging episodes of Mahabharata, you know about the Draupadi marriage. The Draupadi marriage, the most challenging episode. Draupadi marriage, it is a polygyny marriage in which the woman having several wives. Now, why it is called most challenging episode? Because historians have give different kind of explanation about this marriage. Now, the modern, this present day historian mentioned that kind of this marriage were prevalent or popular among the elite people, the high class people, right? Kshatriya people during the ancient time. But we have also found evidence just like that, that kind of marriage was not, considered, this appreciated by the Brahman. Even in this, story, if you have read this story, you came across just like that. The Draupata, the father of this Draupadi, when the Draupata came to know about Kuntini, the mother of this Pandavas, she asked to share Draupadi among his 5 sons. So when the Draupata, the father of Draupadi, came to know about that, he started revolt against it, right? He started asking questions about it. That means that kind of marriage practice was not that much popular at the time, right? So then, if that kind of marriage is not popular at the time, then why this Draupadi marriage was taking as a center of the story? So there's also a big question about it, right? And not only that, then some other historian mentioned about just like that. That kind of marriage was even today popular among this Himalayan region people. Just like in our Tibetan society, right? We have this sasum, right? Women having several husbands, still practice over there, right? Not only that, many historians mention like that. That kind of marriage was practiced during that time because at that time, because of the scarcity or because of this woman with scarcity, right? Less of women, so marriage because of the shortage of women, right? Scarcity of women, shortage of women. Because of that, that kind of marriage was practiced during that time. So that is all about the search for the convergence. Understood? So the last topic of your chapter number 3 is a dynamic text. Point number 7 of chapter number 3, your last topic, a dynamic text. What is dynamic? Dynamic is not a stagnant, right? Keep on moving, changing, or growth was happening. That is dynamic, right? Now, why Mahabharata is known as dynamic text? Because there are many reasons. Because Mahabharata was not stopped only in the Sanskrit, right? Mahabharata was not only stopped with the Sanskrit language. As we know, Mahabharata was wrote in different languages. We have Prakrit, we have Pali, we have Tamil. Not only that, Mahabharata also used to wrote in this Persian language, right? And even Mahabharata was very popular in the Southeast Asian nation, right? This Pali and Prakrit are a language of common people, right? These two languages are language of common people, and that is far more easier than Sanskrit, understood? And these two languages, even most of the Buddhist teaching were in Prakrit language because that kind of language is able to understood by everyone. So that's why these two languages, Pali and Prakrit, were very simple language. And then Tamil, right? As I told you, Tamilingam in ancient Tamil country, is Chola, Cheras and Pandyas. The Tamil language is also very popular and a very ancient language. Mahabharata was not only wrote in Sanskrit, but also in Pali, Prakrit and Tamil. So that's why it's known as, it was called dynamic first. Second point here is, some story originated in a specific place. That means there were many kind of variation in a story. Not all the stories are same. In different place, there were different stories about Mahabharata. What the author, what the writer used to do, they write the Mahabharata according to the audience they have, right? So through that way, because of it shows dynamic. Different stories were there, right? Different stories, different variations were there. So that's why it also shows that Mahabharata was very dynamic. Not only that, performing various kinds of plays, dance, song, movies about Mahabharata even today, right? We have different kinds of plays related to Mahabharata, right? On the stage, drama, different kind of drama used to play. Yeah? Then we have different kind of dance about Mahabharata, different kind of songs related to Mahabharata, different kind of movies related to Mahabharata. Not only that, even during the lockdown, right? The government of India, decided to re-telecast the Mahabharata, right? In a Doordarshan, but it shows because it is dynamic, right? They want to know, the government want to know, people need to, watch Mahabharata. And they also, government also want people to know about how the Indian society looked like in ancient India. And there are some kind of, things that we need to learn from the Mahabharata. Not only that, Mahabharata is, even today's world, Mahabharata matters a lot. Not only in India, in many other countries, right? Mahabharata was very popular in terms of song, in terms of drama, in terms of play, in terms of story. And it also mentioned about how Indian society looks like. Right? So that is all about the dynamic text, right? So through that way, we finish our chapter, chapter number 3. Now, my request for you is, my small request for you is, please do read your textbook. The only mantra to get good marks in this your board exam is read text as much as you can. Understood? That is the only mantra to get good marks in history. Okay. So thank you.